Episode 4. A Smack in the Face. The tremor from the Divine Library had concentrated his attention in his mind, leaving Xavier in a dazed state. He still didn't even know what Jesse's punching routine was, so how the hell could he guide him? Jesse stepped forward and bent over. "Teacher Xavier, please correct my flaws." Rose blinked her eyes. She wanted to see how this expert teacher she had just met would guide him. Everyone's gaze concentrated on him. If he didn't speak soon, he would only end in embarrassment. Just as Xavier was about to spout some bullshit, he suddenly remembered Jesse's flaws that were recorded in the book in the library. He didn't know whether what was recorded was true or not. However, given the situation, it was impossible for him to make something up on the spot. Bucking up his courage, he said, "There are, many flaws in your punch routine. A total of 12 of them." At this, everyone in the crowd burst into laughter. "He said there were many flaws? 12 of them? I didn't hear it wrong, did I? This is the funniest joke I have ever heard."
This soaring fist may not be very advanced, but it is one of the most common skills in the entire kingdom and is known as the basic fist. Although it can't be considered perfect, he actually has the audacity to say that there are 12 flaws? A bunch of lies. He probably couldn't discern anything. That's why he decided to make things up.
Soaring Fist was one of the most basic punching routines of the Olmec Kingdom. As long as one was practicing martial arts, they would have to learn it first. After thousands of years of refinement by countless experts, though it didn't hold much power, it was well reputed for its lack of flaws. Even more so, some people called it the Flawless Fists. For such a punching routine, how could Xavier claim that there were 12 flaws in it? What kind of joke was this? The principal himself probably couldn't have pointed out so many flaws. Adam hadn't expected Xavier to be so boastful and to say such words. His eyes twinkled as he tried to push Xavier into a corner. "Oh, Teacher Xavier sure is a genius to be able to find 12 flaws in the soaring flower fists. Do enlighten us." Despite the murmurs from the crowd, Xavier remained expressionless. However, his heart couldn't help but beat erratically. He didn't expect that Jesse would have used a punch routine that everyone was aware of. His previous self would have definitely been aware of it. However, given that he just transcended over, the other person's memory had yet to fully merge with his. Even though he was a librarian in his previous life, he was still a transcender with an entirely different set of knowledge. After rolling his eyes, he said, "Why, don't you believe it? It isn't that I don't want to guide him, but rather that you all don't trust me. Since you don't want to do as I guided you to, then none of you can blame me for it. Rose, let's go. This kind of gamble is pointless." Seeing that he was on the verge of leaving, Adam stopped him. "Hold it there. We trust you. Do enlighten us." He could tell that Xavier was intentionally coming up with exaggerated figures so that others would refuse to trust him, giving him the opportunity to sneak away. However, it wasn't easy for him to grasp hold of this opportunity to teach him a lesson, so how could he give up at this point? Seeing that he was unable to sneak away, Xavier could only take out the book compiled by the library once again. "If I die, so be it," he thought. Since there was no backing out now, he stared at the flaws recorded in the book, looking through the 12 of them once again. Then his gaze fell on the last one. He ground his teeth and spoke. "The punch routine you just used is right-handed. Let me give you a suggestion. Try using your left hand to strike the stone pillar." Since it was a special privilege granted to a transcender, there was a chance that it could be correct. Besides, even if the information wasn't accurate, he couldn't think of a better way to worm his way out at this point. The crowd first became stunned before a commotion broke out. All of them stared at Xavier with looks of contempt.
Try using the left-handed version? This is considered guidance? What kind of joke is this? One's left hand is normally weak. If he were to execute it with his left fist, wouldn't he be screwing up the entire punch routine?
Everyone knew that the left hand was weaker than the right. Given the shockwave from the fist Jesse just executed, he obviously wasn't left-handed. Yet now, to ask him to execute it with his left hand? Was he serious? Apparently, Adam hadn't expected Xavier to say that. Excited of his impending victory, he commanded, "Jesse, try using Xavier's method so that he can give up." Even though he had just accepted him as a student, Adam was quite confident that Jesse was more skilled with his right hand than his left. If he was to really execute it that way, the force behind it probably wouldn't even hit 65 pounds. For a student to hit 136 pounds before guidance and below 65 pounds after guidance, this would definitely cause Xavier's reputation to fall to the gutters. Jesse snickered coldly and executed the punch routine again. He was very aware of the fact that he wasn't left-handed. To get him to execute the blow with his left hand? What a load of bullshit. Soaring Fist was the basic fist he had been practicing since he was young. Although he wasn't very used to the inversion of left and right, he soon got over it. However, although the shockwave from the fist created a strong gale, it seemed to be worse than the previous one. Could it be? My privilege as a transcender is a sham? Xavier thought nervously. Other people's privilege when they transcend was an old grandfather who could casually enlighten them. As long as they were to follow his instruction devotedly, they would have no problems. Yet, he just had to get a library with all sorts of messy writings. If what was written in the book was false, there was no doubt that he would get expelled from the school. Very quickly, he finished the routine. Jesse walked over to the stone pillar and, raising his left fist, smashed it in. A series of digits appeared. When the digit 2 appeared, Adam burst into laughter. 1? To think it would even be in the tens. However, before he could finish his words, they became stuck in his throat. 271? 271 pounds? The crowd, who had just been mocking him, looked like they had seen a ghost. Previously, Jesse's blow was 136 pounds, and now it had risen to 271 pounds? That was almost a single fold. That was almost a 100% increase. Was this for real? Even the teacher who had scored first in the teacher qualification examination couldn't have possibly caused his student's result to increase by a single fold. Is this for me? Even Jesse was stunned. He stared at the rock pillar in disbelief. He knew that he wasn't left-handed. However, never could he have imagined that his left hand strength would hold so much weight. That was a single fold more compared to his right. The crowd was astonished. Xavier felt joy surging through his body. It's true? At this moment, Xavier could finally confirm that the flaws compiled by the library were true. To be able to see through the skills a person was cultivating in, as well as his weaknesses, this privilege of a transcender was really going to send him to the next level. So, how was it? Your guidance had led to a 20% improvement, while mine has led to a 100%. Teacher Adam, what else do you want to say? Xavier snickered. Adam's face turned pale as he felt a burning sensation in his face. Initially, he proposed this competition to see Xavier make a fool out of himself. In the end, the one who was made a fool of was himself. Retrieving a jade token from his embrace, he bit on his finger. A drop of fresh blood fell on it. "Jesse, I am revoking your status as my student. You can now acknowledge Teacher Xavier as your teacher." Adam glanced at Xavier. "You don't have to be too smug about it. This time you were lucky. The next time we compete, I will make sure that your reputation is ruined." He then turned around to leave. Not only had he lost a student, but his reputation had taken a blow. It was one thing to lose to another teacher, but to lose to the worst one in the academy? What a slap in the face. Teacher. Watching as Adam departed, Jesse's face darkened. Although he managed to achieve a good result under Xavier's guidance, he, like Adam, believed that it was only due to luck. He didn't believe that he would have this kind of skill. "All right, you are now my student. Hurry up and take out your identity card." Xavier didn't care what he was thinking about. A victory in a bet had given him a new student, so he was busy celebrating over it. He casually tossed a jade token over. Although Jesse wasn't really willing to become his student, he knew that he had to surrender to the results of the bet. If he didn't acknowledge Xavier as his teacher, there was no doubt that the other teachers would reject him. His only option was to drip his blood onto the jade token to complete the verification. "Tomorrow, meet here for lessons," he commanded Jesse. Xavier glanced at Rose before walking out of the cafeteria. Returning back to his lecture hall, Xavier dove into his mind to examine the Divine Library closely. After examining for a while, he finally understood a thing or two about it. As long as the person executed their skill or martial art before him, it would immediately compile into a book of their flaws. Oh, I really struck it rich this time. With this thing in my hand, I'll be able to see through any flaws at one go. I doubt I'll be scoring a 0 on my next teacher qualification examination. Frenzied joy raced through his heart. As a transcender, Xavier finally felt some enthusiasm for the future.